That's right, Illumineers, spoiler season has started and Disney Lorcana's second set, Rise of the Floodborn, is full steam ahead. We were pleasantly surprised early on September 12th when Ravensburger dropped all kinds of product images and cards, both on the official Disney Lorcana website and other media outlets like The Gamer, Polygon, and comicbook.com. As mentioned earlier, this set will be called Rise of the Floodborn and dips into the inky origins of Floodborn glimmers, so it looks like this set will be all about the Floodborn and I can't wait. 13 cards were revealed, but before we get into that, I have to show off the product images because Ravensburger has done it again. Like, are you kidding me? Look at these playmats. First of all, Honey Wizard Pooh. Oh, bother. We'll have to get into this card in a second, but oh my god, that playmat is everything. And then freaking Gargoyle Beast. If that isn't the baddest looking playmat you've ever seen, I don't know what is. I genuinely want 2 of each of these playmats so that I can have one to play on and have one to hang on the wall. Like, I'm sorry, I liked the playmats from chapter 1. They were nice, and I just got some in the mail and really liked their quality, but Rise of the Floodborn has come swinging out the gate with these. I am so much more excited about these accessories than I was with the first chapter. Like, look at these Mulan sleeves. She looks awesome. And apologies because I haven't actually seen Raya in The Last Dragon, so I know this is Sisu, but don't really know who that is. Regardless, even though I know the quality of the sleeves aren't the best, I'd definitely throw some over sleeves on those Mulan sleeves and play with them. I thought it would be hard to top the first chapter. I really did, because the art was initially what drew me in and made me fall in love with this game, and I didn't know how they could top it, but so far we're starting off very strong. Next, we get to see the booster box in the Trove, where we can see Raya, the Queen of Hearts, and a different beast on the front. We also see Merlin and Tiana on the front of the booster box and side of the Trove, and if you look close enough, we also see Shere Khan on the side of the Trove as well. Yes, that means we will be introduced to some new IPs in Rise of the Floodborn, including Snow White, Pinocchio, Zootopia, The Great Mouse Detective, The Jungle Book, and Raya and the Last Dragon, according to the Disney Lorcana article. Not only that, but we get to see both of the starter decks available for Rise of the Floodborn. There's an Amber Sapphire one with the Queen and Gaston, as well as an Amethyst Steel one with Merlin and Tiana. According to the website, nothing's changed about the contents of these products compared to the ones from the first chapter. So in the starter deck, you get the deck, 2 foil cards, 1 of each of the face characters, some game tokens, and a booster pack for about $17 MSRP, and for the Trove, you'll get a storage box, 2 deck boxes, 8 booster packs, game tokens, and a player's guide for $50 MSRP. One thing that has changed though is the gift set. For Rise of the Floodborn, to celebrate Disney's 100th anniversary, they are selling this Disney 100 collector's set, which comes with 4 booster packs from Rise of the Floodborn and these 6 foil alternate art cards illustrated by Disney animators. These cards have a satin holographic foil finish, and each animator's signature is displayed on the card. Also, these cards will not show up in Rise of the Floodborn booster packs, so the only place you can get them are in this collector's set. At first, I didn't love the art style, but to be honest, the longer I look at the cards, the more they grow on me. Also, I wasn't planning on collecting gift sets. I actually wanted to collect troves, but I kept a gift set from the first chapter because they're actually a really nice display piece, and this one looks so good. The collector set will be more expensive than the gift set, coming in at $50 for the collector set versus the $30 for the gift set. I'm honestly blown away at the product line for Rise of the Floodborn and can't believe Ravensburger has outdone themselves again. I told myself I was going to pull back on buying so much product after the first chapter because the first chapter was special, but I'll be honest, I don't know if I'll be able to stop myself here. Polygon and comicbook.com posted articles bright and early on September 12th to reveal 13 new cards coming straight from Rise of the Floodborn. We'll go through them in order, starting with none other than Mickey Mouse Friendly Face. Mickey is an amber super rare inkable 6-cost card with 1 strength, 6 willpower, and 3 lore. He has the traits Storyborn and Hero with the ability Glad You're Here, which says whenever this character quests, you may pay 3 ink less for the next character you play this turn. First off, I love the art on this Mickey. I was kind of put off by the Mickey Mouse True Friend because the card just didn't feel all that authentic to me. It looked kind of like they copied a standard Mickey pose and put it on a background of the Great Illuminary, but Mickey Friendly Face feels so much more immersive and authentic in my opinion. When I look at this card, I feel like I'm in the halls of the Great Illuminary, met by Mickey inviting me in as he opens the door and says, "Come on in, there's lots to explore." So awesome job to Veronica De Lorenzo and Livio Cacciatore. Overall, I think this is actually a really solid card too. Having 3 lore on its own makes Mickey a sizable threat to ever be on the board, and with his big willpower, he has lots of opportunity to sustain damage so that Rapunzel can heal him and draw cards. Knowing you'll be questing with him with this high lore count, the ability synergizes perfectly. Imagine only having to pay 6 ink for a Maleficent Monstrous Dragon, or getting to play Stitch Carefree Surfer for only 5 ink. Being able to play really expensive characters early, or even being able to play cheap characters for free, is going to be worth so much value as long as you can keep Mickey on the board. Next is the Queen Commanding Presence, and man does that subtitle fit? I love this pose from the Queen, and Matthew Robert Davies and Lady Shalloran did a phenomenal job on this art. She's an amber super rare inkable 5-cost card with 4 strength, 3 willpower, and 2 lore. She has the traits Floodborn, Villain, and Queen with the keyword Shift 2, which means you can play the Queen on top of another character named the Queen for 2 ink instead of 5, which is the first time we see a Floodborn character whose shift cost is discounted by more than 2 ink. I'm really interested to see if we end up getting the Queen card that costs 1 or 2 ink so that you can shift the Queen on turn 2 or 3. We already have a 1-drop Captain Hook that also has a shift 3 Captain Hook, so we could definitely see it. She also has the ability Who's the Fairest, which says whenever this character quests, chosen opposing character gets -4 strength this turn, and chosen character gets +4 strength this turn. This is going to be a super good card in Amber. One of the problems Amber runs into is a lot of their characters have low strength. To put this into perspective, Scar Mastermind is a 6-cost Sapphire character that reduces a chosen opposing character's strength by 5 on play, and the Queen can reduce an opposing character's strength every time she quests. This isn't on play like Scar, but having the Queen on board is going to make your opponent really have to think when exerting their characters, because you'll be able to trade into them basically for free. The next card revealed is a new song card, Zero to Hero. This is an Amber uncommon, uninkable 2-cost card that says count the number of characters you have in play. You pay that amount of ink less for the next character you play this turn. This is another really great card for Amber because Amber is basically the go wide ink, so you're just benefiting from doing what Amber is supposed to do. A lot of people have mentioned replacing Just in Time with this card in the Amber Emerald aggro deck, but I'm not sure if that's the right play just yet. With Just in Time, you only pay 3 ink for usually a 5 ink character. With Zero to Hero, you pay 2 ink to discount a character's cost based on the number of characters you have in play. So if you only have 2 characters in play and pay for this card directly, you're not actually decreasing the cost of the next card you play. In order to really get value out of this card, you'll need to sing it, and then you really start to see the value. With 3 characters on board, you could sing Zero to Hero, then play Stitch Carefree Surfer on turn 4, drawing 2 cards and getting a beefy character on board. It opens you up to playing other beefy characters with decent lore stats like Triton, Ursula, and others, gaining you lots of tempo by getting a character out on board that might be difficult for your opponent to deal with. I'm sure you can see just how powerful this card can be when trying to flood the board. After that, we see Elsa Gloves Off. She's an Amethyst common, inkable 4-cost card with 3 strength, 4 willpower, and 1 lore. This is the 5th Elsa we've seen in Lorcana so far, and the 4th in Amethyst alone. She has the traits Storyborn, Hero, Queen, and Sorcerer with the keyword Challenger +3, which means when she's challenging, she gets an extra 3 strength. I actually really like this card because it's another pretty good target to shift on top of for Elsa Spirit of Winter. She's also a pretty good contender for replacing Jafar Wicked Sorcerer. The only difference is Jafar has 1 less strength and 1 more willpower, so it really comes down to how much power you need versus survivability, but the fact Elsa is another shift target might end up being more valuable regardless. Before moving on from this card, I think the flavor text is super interesting. It says the power of ice may not stop the flood, but it will help protect Lorcana. This gives us just the tiniest tease of the story going on behind the scenes in Lorcana, which I'm stoked to learn more about. I'm not sure if the flood is an event or a thing, but it's fun to imagine Elsa riding her horse through Lorcana using her powers to stop the flood. After Elsa, we got to see this beautiful Merlin shapeshifter card. Merlin is an Amethyst rare inkable 4-cost card with 1 strength, 5 willpower, and 1 lore. He has the traits Storyborn, Mentor, and Sorcerer with the ability Battle of Wits, which says whenever one of your other characters is returned to your hand from play, this character gets +1 lore this turn. When I first saw this card, I got really excited because I thought it would be super fun to build a deck with Mickey Wayward Sorcerer and Dr. Facilier, Agent Provocateur, bouncing things back to your hand so you could quest with Merlin for a ton of lore, but I think it's important to clarify a ruling here that ruins that idea. Cable pointed out in a tweet that cards that get brought back after getting banished don't count for Merlin's Battle of Wits ability because those cards are being returned to hand from the discard pile and not from in play. This really narrows down the cards that actually synergize with Merlin to Befuddle, Mother Knows Best, and Genie on the Job, and something tells me that's not going to be enough to really do anything with Merlin, so I'm really hoping to see more exciting bounce cards and characters so that we can do some silly bounce shenanigans and quest for a ton of lore with Merlin. And now for what just might be everyone's favorite art for this entire set. Winnie the Pooh, Honey Wizard. Winnie the Pooh is a common Amethyst, uninkable 5-cost with 5 strength, 5 willpower, and 2 lore. He's also a vanilla character with the traits Dreamborn, Hero, and Sorcerer. Y'all, when I heard Winnie the Pooh was going to be in set 2, I was not expecting this. I mean, how awesome does Pooh look sitting on top of that beehive, honey swirling around him and dripping down in harmony with all the bees flying by? John Lauren knocked it out of the park with this card. For those that don't know, Winnie the Pooh has a really special place in my heart because growing up, I spent a lot of time with my aunt, and every time I went to her house, she had all this Winnie the Pooh memorabilia. She's no longer with us, but she had a huge influence on the person I've become today, and every time I see Pooh, I'm reminded of her. So I am absolutely stoked to finally have Pooh in Lorcana. I'll be collecting as many of these cards as I can because of that. Overall, there isn't anything particularly special about the card itself. Winnie the Pooh is actually statted pretty well as a 5-cost 5/5 with 2 lore. He's a direct upgrade to a card like Jumbo Chukiba, and when you look at other 5-drops in the first chapter, we see that Pooh not only trades into other 5 willpower characters, which is great, but he sometimes actually trades favorably, surviving with a couple willpower of his own. Vanillas don't see a ton of play on their own, but to be honest, Pooh's pretty solid and should work in a pinch. Next, we see Sorcerer's Spellbook, which is an Amethyst rare, uninkable, 3-cost item card with the ability Knowledge that lets you exert the item and pay 1 ink to gain 1 lore. This is a really crazy card because this is the first card we've seen in Disney Lorcana that lets you gain lore outside of using a character. Not only does it let you gain lore without relying on a character in play, but item cards can be used the turn they're played, meaning if you have 4 ink, you can immediately play this card from your hand and gain 1 lore to potentially win the game. This is pretty big because in the first chapter, the only way an opponent could do this was by shifting a character with more lore on top of another character already in play so that you could immediately quest to win the game. Or you could play Eye of the Fates for 4 lore and use it to give a character an extra lore to quest with. The main thing here is there was a reliance on a character already being on the board. This meant that your opponent always had the ability to remove your character on board before you had the opportunity to quest with it, saving them from a game loss. But now that's not the case. You almost never want to be in a position where your opponent has 19 lore, but the game ain't over till it's over, and you could always dig for that out so you could potentially squeeze by before your opponent could win. Now, when playing against Amethyst at least, which is already a very strong color mind you, 19 lore or even less depending on how many of these spellbooks they run could mean instant game loss for you on your opponent's next turn. That's not all either. This card is very powerful because it's essentially a counter to hard removal like Be Prepared, Dragonfire, and Let It Go. Hard removal and even damage removal is really popular right now in Lorcana because of that reliance on characters. But now your opponent could wipe your board, and if you have even one of these books on board, you're still ahead and can quest turn after turn. Right now, steel is the only color where we see actual item removal, so maybe we'll see other ways to interact with items in other colors later in Rise of the Floodborn. Before we move on, I just have to highlight that flavor text again. Illumineers seek the power of knowledge, but must be aware of the price. I really wonder what that price is supposed to be. Next up, we see our first legendary of this set, Belle Hidden Archer. Belle is an emerald legendary, uninkable 5-cost character with 3 strength, 3 willpower, and 3 lore. She has the traits Floodborn, Hero, and Princess with the ability Shift 3 and the ability Thorny Arrows, which says whenever this character is challenged, the challenging character's player discards all cards in their hand. Oh my goodness, this card is nuts. We don't currently have a character that can efficiently shift onto Belle on curve, which just means playing a Belle card on turn 2, then shifting Belle on turn 3. So it'll be interesting to see if we get that this set and what ink color it might show up in, because man, this is a super strong ability. For reference, Flynn Rider from the first chapter is basically the undisputed best 2-drop in the game because for 2 ink, you can play him, gain 2 lore, and if the only way to banish him is by challenging him, then your opponent has to discard a card, which is a huge tempo loss. Belle is all of that, but the upgraded version. Even with her low stats, playing her on 5 is still a huge threat, and Emerald already has a multitude of relevant 5-drops, which brings me to my next point. Amber Emerald Aggro is a very good and popular deck running around right now because Amber has really strong aggressive questing characters like Lilo and bodyguards like Simba. The premise of the deck is to play Lilo on turn 1, Simba on turn 2 exerted so that you can quest with Lilo and protect her, then on turn 3 you play just in time to get Mad Hatter, Cusco, Moana, or really anything with high lore out earlier than normal. Now you can do the exact same thing but with Belle instead, and your opponent can't leave her on the board because 3 lore, especially in a deck that's trying to quest fast, just cannot be left in play if possible. So if the only way to banish her is by attacking, your opponent isn't discarding just 1 card, they have to discard their whole hand. That means any future plays they were holding are gone, any draw cards they had in hand are gone, and now they're left in top deck mode as early as turn 3 or 4. Now I can already hear it, but she just dies to smash. And sure, she dies to smash, but that's one of the only cost-efficient cards she dies to, and it's only in one of the 6 ink colors. Not to mention, you know who doesn't die to smash? Cusco and Mad Hatter, which you would also be running in a deck like that. Regardless, just being able to shift out Belle for 3 ink, having a 3/3 body and 3 lore, and that ability is just nuts. And I haven't even gotten to the art yet. I love this look for Belle, and the rose arrows are just such a nice flavor touch. Normally I'm annoyed by Emerald because that whole color just does annoying things, but I can't stay mad at a Belle that looks like that. After Belle, we see Raya, Warrior of Kamandra, who happens to be the front-facing character of all the sealed product, which is really surprising because this card is really subpar. are. She's a ruby uncommon, inkable, 4 cost with 5 strength, 3 willpower, and 1 lore. She's a vanilla character and has the traits Storyborn Hero and Princess. This is basically a reprint of Scar Fiery Usurper, except she has the Princess trait, which might be worth something in a Princess Matters deck. With Raya being the face character, I just have to believe there's a Floodborn character coming that can target this as a shift character. Even then, Scar has a ruby shift character that doesn't see play, and Usurper is not a great target for it either, so I guess we just have to wait and see with this one. Next, we get Dinner Belle, which is a ruby rare, uninkable 4 cost item card with the ability You Know What Happens that lets you exert the card and pay 2 ink to draw cards equal to the damage of a chosen character of yours, afterwards in which you banish. I'm having a really tough time analyzing this card if I'm being honest. Ruby was the only color in the first chapter that didn't get a single card that let them dig through their deck or draw cards, so it's nice that they finally got that, but at the cost of banishing your character and the 4 ink to play the card and the 2 ink cost to activate it, I mean, that's really steep. I don't want to do this thing again where I call an uninkable item card that draws you more cards the worst card in the game before seeing the rest of the set where it turns out that card is actually a really good card and is running one of the most popular decks in the game, so I'm just gonna hold off before I say how good or bad this is for now. My main issue with it is that usually you want to get as much value out of your characters as possible, and board presence is so powerful in this game, but if I play a Maui hero to all and use him to take out a character with 3 or 4 strength, I could see myself using this card, mainly because drawing so many cards is no joke, and with a card that can't quest anyway, depending on the board state, the extra cards might just be more valuable. There's also quite a few chunky characters in Lorcana we haven't seen get a ton of attention, and maybe this warrants playing those, trading favorably with your opponent and drawing cards, but I don't know. Banishing your own character is a hard pill to swallow, I guess. One more thing is this card is uninkable, and we know that cards that are uninkable are usually that way to balance the card, making me believe there's some kind of interaction we haven't seen yet, coming either in Rise of the Floodborn or future sets that really benefit off either damaging your characters or banishing them. Maybe we eventually see cards that do things when they come back from the discard or get banished outside of a challenge. Who knows? For now though, based on the cards we know about currently, I'd say there are better cards you can usually run in your other color pairing for draw than this. Next up is Gaston, Intellectual Powerhouse. Gaston is a Sapphire rare, uninkable 6 cost card with 4 strength, 4 willpower, and 3 lore. He has the traits Floodborn and Villain with the keyword Shift 4 and the ability Developed Brain, which says when you play this character, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may put 1 in your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. I just have to say, so many times I heard people say they hoped we got a Gaston that was smart as a Floodborn character after seeing the theme of Floodborns in Lorcana, and I love it. I think this is such a fun art of a steampunky, smart Gaston, and just love the blackboard behind him. I love that he still very much wants Belle, and you can see his well thought out plan scribbled onto the board. Regarding the card itself, I'm going to say don't underestimate this card. 3 willpower is a lot to have on any character on the board, so even though he's only a 4/4, he threatens a lot of tempo through lore gain. Not only that, but his ability helps you search through your deck and draw a card, and drawing cards is just strong, especially when you get to see them and pick which one you want. You have to remember, a big theme in Sapphire is ramp, with cards like Grimmatala, Mickey Detective, and One Jump Ahead, so they're trying to get to bigger, more impactful characters quicker, and this card can help you do that by looking at the top 3 cards, tossing the ramp cards you probably don't need or want to draw down to the bottom of your deck. And again, he just has 3 lore, which is what Sapphire wants to eventually get to, characters that pose a bigger threat on the board. I'd be willing to bet we see another Gaston for this character to shift onto, since we don't have any Sapphire Gastons, and the only other one we have is the Reckless one in Ruby, which would be a weird shift target in my opinion. Not to mention there's LeFou, which reduces the cost of cards named Gaston, that's an Amber, so you probably want to look at running Amber Sapphire and would want a Gaston in one of those colors to play as well. After that, we finally get into Steel with a card I didn't know I needed in my life, Cinderella Stout-Hearted. Cinderella is a Steel super rare, inkable 7 cost card with 5 strength, 5 willpower, and 3 lore. She has the traits Floodborn Hero, Princess, and a new one, Knight, with the keywords Shift 5 and a brand new keyword Resist +2 with the ability The Singing Sword, which says whenever you play a song, this character may challenge ready characters this turn. This Cinderella is going to be a beast, and there's a lot going on here, so I'm going to start with Resist first. Resist is a brand new keyword coming to Disney Lorcana in Rise of the Floodborn, and Resist reduces the damage dealt to the character with the keyword by whatever value follows the keyword. So in this sense, anytime Cinderella takes damage, whether that's from a challenge or an action, it's reduced by 2, and that is huge. When characters have a high willpower, sometimes it takes multiple pieces of damage in order to banish them. For instance, a normal 5 willpower character might get hit with Smash and then grab your swords, or they could be challenged with Captain Hook and then another 2 strength character. Every time it takes your opponent more than one way to deal 5 damage to Cinderella, Resist is putting in work. Fire the cannons and grab your sword won't work on Cinderella, and even cards that have been removal staples in the game like Maui won't banish her either. Another cool thing to note is another popular card, Aladdin Heroic Outlaw, also won't be able to banish Cinderella in one swing either, so no stealing lore from her. On top of all the beefiness Cinderella brings, her ability will be very strong too if built around. In the first chapter, there weren't any ways for characters to challenge readied characters, and instead you had to rely on cards like Poison Apple and Elsa Snow Queen to exert them first, then challenge. Songs are a really cool and powerful mechanic in Disney Lorcana, so it's often worth it to sing with a character rather than pay for the card with ink. Now you get even more value out of Songs with Cinderella because you won't be relying on another card to exert a character to challenge. She'll be able to challenge whatever it is the opponent is trying to keep safe by not exerting them. There's already some really strong song cards in Steel like A Whole New World and Grab Your Swords too, so you can really take over a game by singing one of those, then banishing a big threat with Cinderella. Not to mention, Cinderella also has 3 lore, which makes her a very scary target on board. And then we also have the new Zero to Hero card, which can let you get Cinderella out even earlier. Honestly, I love to see this card. Steel didn't have any top-end cards that were real bombs, and this is exactly what they needed. I've also fallen in love with this art. Grace Tran did a spectacular job with this one. It's giving me real Rosie the Riveteer vibes with her face and the way she's standing, and I'm here for it. Cinderella doesn't need Prince Charming to save the day. She's got this all on her own. And finally, the 13th card revealed this week is Tiana Celebrating Princess. Tiana is a Steel super rare, uninkable 4-cost with 1 strength, 4 willpower, and 2 lore. She has the traits Dreamborn, Hero, and Princess with the keyword Resist +2 and the ability What You Give is What You Get, which says while this character is exerted and you have no cards in your hand, opponents can't play actions. One of the hard counters to resist characters are going to be hard removal actions like Dragonfire, Be Prepared, and Let It Go. So Tiana could serve a great purpose in making it really hard for your opponent to deal with your resist characters with her ability. The biggest downside is that she requires you to have an empty hand in order for it to work. Although this would be a good counter to the Belle card we saw earlier, you rarely ever want to not have cards in your hand, much less make an effort to keep it that way. Relying on top decking is not a very reliable strategy because you aren't able to plan your future turns like you would if you knew what cards you were working with. Not to mention, sometimes you might have to play cards when they aren't optimal to play just to keep your character safe with Tiana's ability. Also, even though she has resist, she still has to be exerted in order for her ability to work, leaving her vulnerable, and while you're making an effort to never have cards in your hand, all your opponent has to do is challenge and banish Tiana, and then they can play any actions they want. I'm interested to see if there are more cards coming that synergize with this ability because it seems really niche. I could definitely see someone running a Sapphire Steel deck with Belle and Fishbone Quill so you could get cards out of your hand, protecting Belle from hard removal, and getting to those high lore counts with Belle's ability, then running Beast Mirror to see multiple cards a turn, maybe throw a couple Tamatoas in there to seal the game. Could be a fun deck idea I might have to play around with. And that's everything we learned this week for the upcoming set, Rise of the Floodborn. I won't lie, I'm really surprised to start seeing spoilers this early. I wasn't expecting to start seeing Ravensburger show any of this until the beginning of October, but I'm stoked for the new set. I didn't think they'd be able to top the first chapter with the art and excitement of the release, but I'm already so excited. The art we've seen already looks crazier and better than set 1. We'll get to learn more about the story happening in Lorcana, and there's already some crazy cards that'll really shake things up. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. It lets me know you like the content and I should keep doing more. Please let me know in the comments what characters you'd like to see in Rise of the Floodborn and why. Socials are in the description below if you want to follow me on Twitter or join the Discord. Most importantly, remember to take care of yourself. My name is Brandon, also known as B Squared. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.